And this podcast is basically my best effort to connect with other people committed to making life as good as it can be. We're here to explore a pretty wide range of perspectives and practices, as well as the people behind them. Normally via in-depth conversation, long-form interview. Today, however, first episode, I'm joined by no one. Just me and you. I've been working with ayahuasca for quite a while now, and last week I had an experience that inspired me to write. I've been writing and revising pretty much nonstop since then, and the text forms the basis of this episode. So, forgive me for not making perfect eye contact with the camera, but I am looking at some notes below. Anyway, today I want to talk about psychedelic medicine, and specifically ayahuasca, as a tool for what I call existential hormesis. We'll get into the details of what that means a bit later on. But before we get going, let me say, if you want to get in touch with me directly about the experiences we offer at the retreat center here in Spain, this podcast, or anything else, email me at Eric with a C at primalnature.eu. So, let's begin. I'll just assume that you're here now because you're asking yourself whether you're ready for ayahuasca, how to get the most out of your experience, or whether it's right for you at this time in your life. Maybe you're new to psychedelics or just new to ayahuasca. Or maybe you've done it a number of times and you're just not sure why your experiences haven't lived up to the grand expectations that you went in with. Whatever your experience, I suspect that underneath your questions about ayahuasca lie a few others. Some version of why isn't my life as good as it should be? Or what's wrong with me for feeling this way, and what can I do about it? Now, these aren't bad questions per se, but they do tend to lead us down unnecessarily tortuous paths. We could spend our entire lifetimes formulating various answers of increasing intricacy in therapy, for example. But those answers, no matter how brilliant, are unlikely to help us make meaningful changes to our lives. The truth, I think, is much simpler and in some ways much more difficult to accept than any answer to these hypothetical questions. So maybe take a step back if you haven't already and ask yourself why you're interested in ayahuasca in the first place. Or more precisely, for what purpose are you attracted to it? Formulate your intentions as clearly as possible. It's clear by now that most, if not all, major religions developed in close connection to the psychedelic experience. Rather than choosing one to believe in as a sort of thought experiment, I often recommend that people imagine they will be taking a trip to the Oracle at Delphi a few thousand years ago. So, close your eyes for a minute and see if you can see yourself in a tunic and sandals, a peasant in Grecian fields of wheat. Your life is stripped of all your present quotidian worries. No car, no phone, no frenetic impulse to make something of yourself. Just the stark reality of sun and heat in your work. You work, as Khalil Gibran told us, that you may keep pace with the earth and the soul of the earth. Your life following the slow progress of the seasons. Bear with me here. A fundamental part of the psychedelic experience is to get out of your own routines of habit and thought and feeling. So don't start putting up barriers like cynicism and skepticism just yet. See yourself as a humble peasant and imagine that this is your one opportunity to peek beyond the veil of your daily existence and glimpse the secrets of whatever lies beyond. Some deeper truth waiting for you to discover it. In order to visit the Oracle, however, you must purify yourself. Cleanse your inner life of all dishonesty, all internal deceit. So you have to write a letter. Write a letter in which you expose yourself to the Oracle completely. First, what do you fear about this experience? Dig deep, below the surface of daily details. Allow yourself to feel these fears completely as you write them out. And second, what do you desire? What is it you are seeking? Write freely, without worrying about syntax or grammar. No one else will ever read this. Just let the feelings flow. And when you're done, maybe at another sitting, go back through what you've written and notice where you've held back, where you've glossed things over. Notice how even here in a fictitious letter to an ancient oracle, you hold on to various forms of resistance. Notice how difficult it is to be fully transparent and honest, even with yourself. And now, push a bit deeper. Notice the fears that lie underneath the fears you've expressed, and the desires underneath the desires. Embellish your writing, flesh it out, until it feels full and complete. If the oracle, which is a metaphor for your own conscience, deems that you've bared your soul sufficiently, you will be permitted one question. Humbly, with care and reverence, allow yourself to imagine, what would that question be? Terence McKenna once said that our lives are a mystery suspended between two eternities. It is wise to think of psychedelics as tools to explore the brief mystery we are granted here on Earth. Most people come to ayahuasca looking to get rid of what they consider to be negative situations, emotions, habits, or thought patterns, hoping to suddenly embrace some new, better, brighter reality, which is certainly understandable. Most of Western thought and the entire discipline of psychiatry, which is ostensibly our culture's best effort at preserving our inner well-being, is about doing precisely that, suppressing symptoms and covering over difficulties with fancy pharmaceutical band-aids. It's easy to assume that an encounter with ayahuasca would be no different. So maybe you're desperate. Maybe you're just vaguely curious. Maybe you've been accumulating various accolades, reaching goals and checking boxes like house, career, spouse, what have you. And you found that somehow it's not enough. You're looking for something more, and you've heard that ayahuasca just might be it. This, I think, is probably a mistake. Not that ayahuasca can't be an integral part of improving your life profoundly. It definitely can. But the only way out is through. I'll repeat that. The only way out is through. Dante knew this in the 1300s. Many others discovered it too, both before and after. You can't avoid your emotions or any aspect of yourself if you want to be free. In fact, it's just the opposite. You have to experience even your most difficult emotions fully. Embrace the darkest, strangest, most troublesome parts of yourself without resistance. That's the only way they'll ever release their hold on you. And if you approach ayahuasca specifically in order to do this, the effects can be astounding. The word psychedelic is a compound from Greek, meaning mind manifesting. This is what they're best at doing. Carl Jung said it beautifully. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness visible. If we try to skip this process, hoping to use ayahuasca or meditation or visualization or any practice as a form of spiritual bypass, it tends to end miserably. So, consider for a moment that there is no such thing as a negative emotion or a bad feeling, only realms of experience that are more or less difficult for you to accept. Consider that the specific part of your reality that you have a hard time with is likely rooted in a time when you were young and vulnerable and wounded in some way, either dramatic or subtle, conscious or not, maybe in an instant or maybe over many years. But this experience not only shaped the way that you understand yourself, what you might call your identity, but also underneath that, on a compulsive, instinctive, animalistic level, the realms of sensation and feeling you are attracted to, and those you flee from as though your life depended on it. If you find yourself sometimes overwhelmed with anger, anxiety, depression, a sense of meaninglessness, whatever it is, think of that as your mind and body's defense system gone a bit haywire, protecting you obsessively and preemptively against the realms of feeling you refuse to acknowledge or accept. This is called trauma, and we all have it, to one degree or another. Now, trauma, as you probably know, isn't necessarily flagrant abuse or neglect. It isn't even the event that happened, so much as the schism that our reaction to the event created within us. The inability to connect with our innermost selves and be present for the entire spectrum of our experience. Now, just by living in society, no matter what our childhood was like, we are pressured to widen that internal schism constantly in our daily lives. It's a matter of shutting up, sitting down, fitting in, getting in line, saying please and thank you. Just being a functional member of society seems to require that we don't listen to our inner instinct much of the time. So, to some degree, it's unavoidable. But that matter of degree is absolutely critical. When we take it too far, when we systematically refuse to feel certain ways or recognize that we do, because it doesn't fit in with our self-image, or it's too painful, or whatever the reason, we inevitably create patterns of compulsive behavior to avoid those feelings and indulge in others. Which is why we get addicted to work, to alcohol, to victimhood, to emotionally shallow relationships, whatever our preferred medicine may be. And it is precisely those patterns that keep us from living with the richness and profundity that we know we need. If all of this is true, and I'm convinced it is, then it is only by connecting with our most difficult emotions and the most difficult parts of both our past experiences and our current selves to which they correspond that we can be whole. And wholeness, or integrity, a complete, uninterrupted connection between thought and feeling, instinct and analysis, body, heart, and mind, that is the best model in neurological, psychological, and experiential terms that we have to describe the conditions necessary to live a full, meaningful life. So if you want vitality, resilience, inner peace, and profound freedom, full-scale mind-body integration is the best way we know to get there. Ayahuasca, of course, can do much to help us along the way. But the process isn't automatic, and the changes aren't permanent unless you do the work to make them so. So, circling back, if you find yourself asking whether you're ready for ayahuasca, ask yourself whether you're interested in delving more deeply into the hidden parts of your mind, your heart, your soul. Do you want to heal your wounds, process your fears, and rework your compulsive patterns of thought, feeling, being? Are you willing to cherish even the most difficult aspects of your existence? If your answer is yes, then mine is too. You're ready to begin. Ayahuasca, I think, is best viewed as a tool to help you radically deepen and accelerate the personal work that you already know needs doing. Now, I'm not a shaman, and I'm not a psychiatrist. So some portion of you won't be interested in what I have to say. That's fine. I've studied and worked in a number of different modalities, and what I've seen has convinced me that my true credentials, the only ones that ever really matter, are the personal experience I have, born out of my calling to explore, to heal, to grow, and to transform. If you want to hear the rest of this talk, look for my podcast on Spotify or iTunes, or follow the link, which I hope I'll figure out how to put